Some illustrators feel stuck because they don't have enough ideas. Others have plenty of ideas, but no real way of figuring out which ones are worth doing and will actually help them land clients. In this video, I'll show you a system that solves both problems: unlimited ideas and a way to pick the ones that will help level up your portfolio. I'm James. I've been an illustration agent for 10 years, working on projects with some incredible artists and brands. I've also reviewed hundreds of illustration portfolios, so I know what catches a client's eye and what gets ignored. That's why I can tell you with confidence, if you use this system, your portfolio will thank you for it. You know that moment where you sit down at your desk, open your sketchbook, and nothing. Just a blank page staring back at you. Some artists get stuck there, waiting for inspiration to magically appear. But I don't think that problem is actually that common, because you can just draw whatever's in front of you or whatever pops into your head to get warmed up at least. The problem is, if your portfolio is built only on what you feel like drawing or what you can see, it often doesn't line up with what clients actually need. You might end up with beautiful work, but it's not targeted. It doesn't show how you'd solve real problems for real clients. I see that a lot. Some illustrators build portfolios that are basically passion projects, hobbies, and they wonder why the commissions don't come. The ones who stand out, the ones who get hired, think much wider than I just draw what I like. They imagine themselves in the client's shoes. They look at the market and the audiences and the purpose of the illustration. In other words, they don't rely on their own inspiration. They have a method for generating ideas that clients can actually use, and that's exactly what this system will help you do. I'm sure a lot of you have come across this book by legendary music producer Rick Rubin. He talks about making the music that he wants to hear.
The audience comes last.
How can that be?
Well, the audience doesn't know what they want.
He doesn't chase trends, he just creates what he likes. And it turns out millions of people like it too. That sounds like perfect advice for creativity, right? Well, first of all, who am I to argue with Rick Rubin? But yeah, I know that. But here's the difference. He has decades of experience and finely honed creative instincts. He's built a career on shaping taste, not following it. And in music, there isn't really a client in the same way there is in illustration. The listeners are the client, I suppose, and there are millions of them. For commercial artists, it doesn't work the same way. You can just make whatever you like and hope it connects with people and clients, but there's a lot of luck involved if you take that approach, especially if you're at the start of your journey. And I don't want your career to depend on luck. That's why I recommend treating your personal projects like client projects. When you frame them with a clear audience, a format, and a purpose, you take luck out of the equation and make it obvious why a client should hire you. There's a balance to strike, because we want your work to feel personal and not just created based on what's popular. But thinking about what clients like and commission before you start drawing will make your portfolio stronger. It's really simple. We'll need 4 sheets of paper. I like working on big sheets, but a notebook works just fine. Title each one with subjects, formats, clients, and audiences. All we're doing here is making lists. Then you can cut them up, put them in an envelope, and mix and match to make yourself a brief. Let's start with subjects. This is what the illustration is actually going to be of. I'm going to list a bunch of things here to get you started, and you can add whatever you want. Add some general ones like nature, but you can also get really specific with it too, like mushrooms, for example. Add some things that you like drawing, but also add some things you don't like or things you've never drawn before. Aim for about 30 subjects. The more you write down, the more combinations you'll be able to make later. The next list is formats. Illustration is used in all kinds of different ways and on different products, like book covers, for example. Clients want to see your work in a format that they actually use. It helps them see how they can use your work in their projects. I'll write down a bunch here. Think about scale too. Could be a tiny icon on a website, could be a mural on the side of a building. Try not to limit yourself too much at this point and really give yourself some variety. List number 3 is about who's paying for this imaginary project, the client or the kind of client. You can be really specific and name a company, but you can also be a bit more general too. When you imagine what kind of client is commissioning this project, it tells you a lot about what they want it to do and who they want it to connect with. A travel poster for Lonely Planet, for example, will feel completely different from a travel poster for Ryanair. Same subject, same format, but the client wants different things. You can have a lot of fun with this last list. This one is about the audience that the illustration is aimed at. If a company hires you to illustrate something, the illustration isn't necessarily for them, the company, it's for their customers. And there are a lot of different kinds of people in the world, and products are aimed at different kinds of niches and people and types of people. An illustration aimed at poor design students is going to look very different from one that's aimed at retired golf enthusiasts. So I've got my 4 envelopes here. I'll pull out some at random and let's see what we can come up with. Okay, let's start with the subject. Music, nice. Format. Sticker. The audience is gym bros, nice. And the client will be a factory. Music and stickers go well together, I think. Even combined with gym bros, you know, you could think about the kinds of music that people listen to in the gym. Something high energy, right? Dance music, funk, I hear is pretty popular in the gyms. Factory is a bit of a challenge here, but we've got the subject as music, and we want stickers for gym bros. So the gym bros might use stickers on their gym bag or water bottle. You know, maybe it could even be stickers that are stuck up inside a gym. And actually, what if the gym is in an old factory? That could be pretty interesting, I think. So I'll put that project to one side and we'll give it another go. Another subject, the Olympics. Perfect. Winter Olympics is coming up in February. If you don't have any winter sports themed illustrations in your portfolio, now's a great time to do it. The format is going to be a box, so like a packaging project. The client is going to be a bookshop, and the audience will be, come on, give me a good one. Rich idiots. Perfect. Okay. I don't know why I wrote that one down. The Olympics tied with a box for a bookshop. Potentially this is going to be a special edition, a box set of books about the Olympics. Just put that to one side for a second. This is looking pretty good. So it could be a history of the Olympics. It could be books about different sports fields within the Olympics, and they've got this box set of the different, I don't know, winter Olympic sports over the last 100 years or something like that. And rich idiots, I mean, that's pretty broad, but you could probably just go real crazy with like the detailing on the gift box itself. It could be gold foiled, it could be embossed, it could be really like premium. The sort of thing that only someone rich would buy. Maybe not rich idiots exclusively, but I think that one can work pretty well too. Subject, and I'll just show you inside there so you know I'm not cheating. Cocktail. A museum display. The audience is young professionals, and the client is cosmetics company. Cocktails are always really like popular topics for illustration, cocktail books and menus and things like that. Museum displays often have illustrations on them to go along with information about whatever has been shown in the museum. So maybe we could think about this as an exhibition of cocktails, possibly. And then that actually would tie in pretty well with young professionals. Maybe we're thinking about the big city young professional crowd out for drinks after work on a Friday, and maybe the museum is putting on a late night opening with cocktails. So actually, the subject of the museum exhibition could be anything, but they're serving cocktails at this particular event. and maybe this event is run by a cosmetics company. This one could work really well. So a museum display, maybe it's information about the cocktails, or maybe it's information about the cosmetics products that are being displayed in the exhibition. Yeah, there's something there. It's not an easy one, but I think it's just about doable. All right, I'll do one more. Nature, and the format will be a billboard. The audience is renters, and the client is a hospital. Nature is a great subject, and having something on a billboard is kind of a interesting, challenging topic. You want something that can be read and understood very quickly and easily, because often people are driving past billboards, so it's got to be bold and it's got to communicate very clearly. So if the client is a hospital, maybe they have green spaces around the hospital and they want to keep it, for example, they want it to be a smoke-free hospital. They don't want any smokers around. But maybe the hospital is surrounded by buildings of renters, and renters typically don't necessarily take as much pride in their community areas as homeowners do. I'm generalizing there because it doesn't count for everybody. But maybe this hospital wants to put up a billboard in their grounds to encourage the renters to treat the area with respect, because it's a hospital where people are recovering and they don't need any of that extra stress or pollution or litter or anything like that. So actually, that is a pretty good project, I think. Not every combination is going to work, but that's okay. They don't have to be completely random every time. You can switch out each component until you find one that inspires you. There's somewhere between 25 and 30 ideas in each one. That's somewhere between 400 and 800,000 combinations. More than enough for a portfolio, I think. As you can see, not all of them work that well together, but if you get 3 options that could work out of the 4, just pick another until it seems like a legitimate project. And once you've got some interesting combinations written down, you might want to take time to do a bit of research or make a mood board before you dive in. For example, if you pick out Nike as your client, that tells you a lot about how the final illustration might need to look, because they have a very strong brand. You can probably imagine what a Nike store or even the Nike website looks like, even if you've never seen it, because their brand is so strong. I heard someone talking about defining what a brand is on a podcast recently. They said, if Nike were to design a hotel, you could pretty much tell what it would look like, what kinds of colours they would use and what sort of amenities it would have, because Nike's brand is so strong. But if Hilton, the hotel chain, were to design a shoe, you'd have no idea what it would look like because they don't have a visual brand in the same way. If you've pulled out a more general client category from the envelope, like a law firm, then there's not as much information about the specific brand. But you could take a look at some law firm websites and see what you're dealing with. Most will be very corporate and serious, but also modern and smart and refined. When it comes to audiences, you can dig into what kinds of things those people like. 18 to 20-year-olds will have different tastes than 50 to 60-year-olds, for example. You can browse products that are aimed at those different kinds of audiences and make some educated guesses about what they like. And again, that informs how your illustration should look and what kind of message it should communicate. Formats and subjects are more straightforward. If you're illustrating a book cover, you basically just need to pick a size that's appropriate to the subject. Kids' books tend to be bigger, but romance novels are small, novel size. Just pick something realistic to the kind of project you're working on. And your subject is simply what you're going to draw, but don't let it limit you too much. Let's say you pull out beer as your subject. Think of all the beer-related things you could add. Could be as simple as a bottle or a pint of lovely golden ale, but it could also be illustrations of the ingredients of the beer. Could be the brewery itself. Could be something to do with Oktoberfest and all the traditional German and Bavarian stylistic influences that go along with that. You've got most of the elements of a real brief here. You could go an extra step and give yourself a deadline too, so you can practice that part before the stakes are high. So I'm guessing that most people don't have time to go through this whole process of ideation and cutting things out. I'd love you to go through the brainstorming part at least, so these briefs are personal to you and what you come up with your own mind. But if you want to try this out in the next 5 minutes with a lot less effort, Head over to the link in the description because Jonas from Creative Howl has made a simple tool to do this exact experiment. You can randomize results for all these different topics and subjects and formats, and even re-roll ones that you're not sure about. Try this out the next time you're working on a new illustration because it will make your personal projects better and your portfolio better. When you try it, please let me know what kinds of combinations you come up with. The more ridiculous, the better. In fact, why don't you challenge me with a crazy combination in the comments and I'll see if I can come up with a decent project out of it. I might regret that. Have fun, and if you're ready to start adding new projects to your portfolio website, I've got some tips on that in this video. See you next time.